I'm going to be wearing this new dress to London to the Stitch Festival, and it combines comfort and elegance all in one, an amazing print. And I've just bought the fabric, so it makes it even more exciting. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I'm very excited to share the dress I've just made. It's fresh off the machine. It's a dress that I was a little bit nervous about because I was running on the deadline for this pattern test and I still didn't have the fabric. Last week I went over to Birmingham on the train to Sew Pleasure, which is a sewing event, and I found the perfect fabric there. This meant that I basically got home with the fabric and I started working on the dress straight away. Something that doesn't happen a lot because I tend to keep my stash around. There's sometimes a huge amount of time in between the purchase of the fabric and actually sewing the garment. Not the case this time. What I'm talking about is a new pattern from Itch to Stitch called Markina Dress. I'm going to show you the photos from Kenneth, who owns and designs at Itch to Stitch. She used a lovely Ponte Roma in an amazing color and you can really see the features. There is a bodice and a skirt with a waistband in between. The waistband has 2 layers there. It encloses the seam of the bodice. The bodice fits amazingly. It's got bust cup sizes and a bustard over here that can customize your feet. At the back, the bodice is simple. It's cut on the fold and it's got a roundish neckline that hits your clavicle, your collarbone. There's a placket down the center and all on the inside is finished with facing. Super neat, easy to achieve. Nothing difficult over here. You can do either short sleeves or long sleeves. These are regular sleeves. There's no detail on the sleeves. And then the skirt is slightly A-lined. It's meant to be at the mid-knee, I suppose, or even midi if you're a little bit shorter. For me at least, it's right above the knee where I always wanted it to be. Now, if you're sewing a solid or any fabric that would show the detail, you can opt to add in a little flap right there underneath the waistband. So if I'd done a solid, I would have done the flap. But because my print is a little bit busy, I opted out of the detail. Now, I wanted to do the long sleeves. I bought 1.5 meters. I measured it and they actually cut 1.5 meters. So I had no little extra bit. I ended up being short about 4 inches of fabric to get the long sleeves. There was no way I could cut it out. So I ended up doing the short sleeve, but that's okay. Now, one thing I need to mention about this button placket here in the center, you might think that you need it to get into your dress. I think a lot of you might not need it. At least I don't need it. I can just pull the dress on over my head. I did not sew buttonholes on mine. I went a little bit rogue, don't tell anyone. Now the A-line skirt at the back has some waist studs. Not on the front, just on the back. Love that for us. A little bit of extra shaping at the back is always welcome. Because the Markina dress is brand new at Itch to Stitch, it's going to be 20% off through next Tuesday, the 24th of March. I'll leave you my affiliate link at the top of the comment section, pinned, super easy to spot there and click. If you end up clicking, you don't pay anything extra. I just receive a small commission back from Kenneth, and that is one way that you can support the work I do here on YouTube. It's one of the ways I make an income creating all this helpful content that you can watch without any cost over here on YouTube. So if you use my link, I'm super grateful. For this dress, you need knit fabric that is structured. So it mentions horizontal stretch requirement of 50%. So from selvage to selvage, you don't really need vertical stretch here, or if it does, it can be minimal, so there's no vertical stretch requirement. And usually you'll find that Ponte Roma double knits and such don't really have much vertical stretch, so that is okay. Just look for something like that that's a little bit more structured and you'll be okay. Let me show you the fabric I found over at Birmingham. It's one that I'd always wanted to try. I hadn't come across it before. I knew it existed, of course. This is a modal spandex. This is a modal knit with lycra and it's medium weight. It's printed on one side, black on the other side, and it's got a lovely amount of stretch. It's very soft. Now vertically, it has barely anything, just some give. So because the vertical stretch is limited, I am going to make sure the vertical lengths of the pattern match my body, much similar to what I would do with a woven garment. Just because I can't count on the dress stretching vertically, I know it's going to be comfortable because of all this horizontal stretch, which is way more than 50%, which is what's recommended in the pattern. I'm excited. It's a semi-structured fabric, perfect for this design, and the print I think is really interesting. I love the tones of brown in here and black. Other than having that amazing 50% stretch at least, you need that recovery. So you need lycra or spandex or elastane content in your knit. So some fabrics stretch a whole bunch, but they don't have much elastane in there, and then they end up stretching out and deforming. Those types of fabrics would not be amazing for this type of dress. So just make sure it comes back. At least 5% spandex, I think you'd be okay. I would not use rayon spandex, ITY, something super light like that. I think it wouldn't be nice. The facings would not end up looking nice. These fabrics have a lot of vertical stretch. You would end up with a dress that just hangs. The waistband is not going to hit your waist. So just avoid those light, super stretchy fabrics. This design with all the features, the dots, the waistband, all the things is meant to be sewn with a structured fabric, and I completely agree. Other than your structured knit, you need some tricot knit interfacing. This interfacing is a little bit different because it has a little bit of give. It's not the type that is completely non-stretch. 7 to 8 buttons, I think is okay. You need a little bit of fusible stay tape for the shoulders. I don't have that, so you're gonna see what I did instead. Very achievable as well. For the inner waistband and the side of the fake pocket flap that you don't see, you could use a lighter weight knit. I would have done that if I had a lighter weight knit. I just don't have that, so I just use the same fabric for my inner and the outer waistband. Sizing is amazing from 00 to 40 US, goes up to a 62-inch hip, A cup through to double D, amazing. Remember, your sewing cup size has nothing to do with what you see on your bra. Measure your upper bust, measure your full bust, figure out the difference. Look at this chart and see where you fall. I'm a C cup, I have a 3-inch difference, so that is my choice there. The ease around the bust should be 0, but it doesn't feel like 0 because the fabric is stretchy. So I don't feel like I'm wearing a super fitted garment. It's the same at the waist. At the hips, you're gonna have some space, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of extra space around the full hip. I chose a size 12 bodice with the C cup. I kept the waist 12 and then the top of the skirt same 12 and then blended out to 14 at the hips. Maybe I should have blended in 1 extra size at the waist. I feel my waist a little bit looser, but I'm very happy with that. I much prefer the fit that I got where it's a little looser at the waist. Now, this fabric has no vertical stretch, so when I do vertical measurements on this bodice, I want the middle of that waistband to be right at my waist. So I need to pin that waistband to the bodice so I can measure. Super easy how I figured out that I needed to do a tiny bit of a sway back adjustment on the back. But that's it. I didn't change the length of the bodice on the front, just a little tweak on the back. I kept the skirt length the same. I measured it and figured out it's perfect. It's going to be above the knee where I want it anyway. This is my dress. I love how it turned out. The fabric has a little bit of drama in there. I love the tones, the colors. It made my life a little easier because even though it's a print and everything, I don't need to match anything up. I could just cut it and sew it, and yeah, that makes me happy as well. So this is a rounded neckline. My placket is just overlapped like it should, but instead of having the buttonholes there, I didn't do them and I sewed the buttons right through. My buttons are sewn 6 centimeters apart or 2 3/8. That is usually what I like, what I prefer. One of these is at my bust height. I made sure to measure that. And look, if this had been a solid, I would have done the buttonholes. But with a busy print like this, who's gonna know? Before making the final decision, what I did was hand baste this closed. I just did really quick hand basting and then I tested to see if this top part could fit my head circumference. You know, if I could just take it on and everything without actually needing those buttons. And it was totally fine. I can just pull this dress on the top. It goes over my head. It's absolutely fine. Now, if you've watched my Cambridge vlogs, I bought these buttons the other day at Hobbycraft. They were quite expensive each. I find $150 per button quite expensive. These were one of the buttons I lost on the street. I had to go back and get more. So these buttons turned out very expensive. More expensive than the fabric, actually. Anyway, that's okay. Down here is the waistband. I didn't need to match anything, but there is the waistband. Where the middle of this waistband is, that is where I wanted my waist to be when I wear it. So that was the goal. The back is the same right here. The skirt is simple. I have a simple hem. My seams are pressed open and serged. So this is a black cloth that was printed on. So there you can see the back facing right there, top stitched. The front The button placket, you can see how that seam there is enclosed between the two waistbands, and then at the bottom, it's just serged together and the seam pressed down to attach the skirt. There are some waist studs right there that you can't see on the skirt, but they are there. And the bust stud right there makes a huge difference to the fit of the bodice. Let's see it on. I've got it styled just with heels. The heels, I bought them here in Cambridge. There's something new I'm taking back home. Love them. They're brown. They go perfectly. I bought them a few weeks ago. And then I'm going to show you a casual look. And it's actually the look I'm going to wear to the Stitch Festival tomorrow, this Thursday. This is my Markina dress from Itch to Stitch. This is a modal spandex, structured fabric, nice amount of horizontal stretch. I've got a size 12 bust, C-cup option. The waist is still a 12 and then I blended out to a 14 at the hips. I kept the length the same for the skirt, so this is the original length. At my height, it's above the knee, exactly where I want it to be. There is a waistband in between the bodice and the skirt. I think the fit is outstanding. For the front bodice, I kept the original length. I measured and noticed that my waistband was going to hit right at my waist. So the middle of the waistband, right where my waist is. To achieve the same at the back, I had to do a small sway back adjustment, 3/8 of an inch at the center back of the bodice, shorter, so that this can stay nice and even. There are dots here at the back skirt. Check out this neckline. It's nice and high, comfortable. I can actually put this on over my head without having to undo the buttons. And that's why I didn't do buttonholes on mine. I just sewed the buttons right through the placket. Of course, you can do the buttonholes if you want, but they're not necessary to get into the dress. I think the print disguises the fact that I don't have the buttonholes. I would have definitely done them if I had a solid fabric. Sleeve fit, super comfortable. I have a short sleeve. It could be long. I just didn't have enough fabric to do the long sleeve, which I wanted. But this is okay as well. I like the length. I think the fit on the shoulders, extremely comfortable. And the neckline finish here is very neat with the facing on the inside. There is a bust stud here. Mine is a C-cup and I lowered my bust stud by 3/4 of an inch and it's perfectly placed right now. Otherwise it would be sort of on the top of my bust, which is something I never want. Love the fit of the bodice. I think this neckline is perfect. It is cold right now. It's gonna keep me nice and warm. It's not uncomfortable. Remember, I can pull this on over my head. No drama, no need for zippers or even the button placket. Just so comfortable, and the neckline finish is lovely. I love the dress. You can definitely dress it up or down, whatever you want. Got some heels with this one, but I could definitely dress it down as well. I think it looks really chic. The fit is outstanding. And then pair it with the comfort level here with this stretchy fabric. It's the best of both worlds. Here is a real life scenario of how I'm gonna wear my Markina dress right now when it's cold. So lots of black and brown here. So I've got a soft shell brown jacket I brought, Columbia ready to wear. Very, very nice for this weather where it's not extremely cold. Black tights and boots. My red little scarf, my red little bag. I think it livens it up a little bit. And it's super comfortable. Love it. Streamlined. I'm actually going to head out and walk quite a bit. I'm looking for muslin fabric. So yeah, this is real life. And this is exactly how I'm going to wear my dress to go to the Stitch Festival. So this is the look. Red little details and my Markina dress with a brown jacket. Love how it turned out. Extremely comfortable, extremely wearable. Yeah, so if you want to say hello to me at the Stitch Festival tomorrow in London, this is the fit. My Markina dress with a brown jacket, the red scarf, the red bag. I'm always going to be wearing something red, so I'm easy to spot-ish. So yeah, just check out for this person walking around, tall person with this dress and a little camera. It's most likely me. I'm going to show you a lot of the sewing. It's a structured fabric. You're going to see me sewing on the sewing machine a lot. The only thing I'm using my serger is to clean up the edges. I'm basically sewing this as if it were a woven garment. I much prefer that. I find the seams lie and press so flat when you just press them open rather than having it together. Just my preference. I'm not saying you can't sew all your seams with the serger. Yes, you can. But I don't think it's the best look and the best for comfort in this type of fabric. That's just what I think. Give it a go. If you never try it, you'll never see what the difference is. 3/8 seam allowance, we'll see a lot of it. This is the front bodice, and this section has an integrated placket where you just need to interface that section before, and then during the process we fold it back, and that's where the buttons go, so it's super easy. You can see this area of the paper, I can sort of push it back. I have cut around this area, everything, but I left extra fabric around here as well. What I've done here is fuse my interfacing. The pattern tells you what width you need to interface, so that's already fused on. Now I can go ahead and cut these top and bottom sections that could have shrunk the pattern piece this way. So that's how I avoid that happening. Right there, right there. So that's my modified block fusing for this center area. So modified block fusing for the center part of the bodice. This is traditional block fusing over here for the facings. Just slightly larger pieces already interfaced. And then I'm going to trim the excess. This is for the front and the back. I like that it's not cut on the fold, so you get an extended piece. That means that there's less human error in the fold there. That can sometimes make your piece a different size. So this is always really nice. You get the exact shape and size as the original pattern piece without the glue of the interfacing affecting that. Especially for neat fabrics, they do tend to react quite a lot to the glue, so your pattern piece could change drastically, just get smaller and deformed. It has happened to me in the past. This is just a very accurate way of doing it. This is the back bodice, shoulder areas, and I didn't bring any fusible stay tape with me. So I just cut little pieces of non-stretch interfacing, very stable, and that's what I'm going to fuse along the edges here. This is a knit garment. I do have quite a bit of horizontal stretch over here, so you don't want these shoulders deforming over time. This is good practice with any knit garment, a sweater, a t-shirt, a cardigan, anything with knit. Check out the stretch. Can mean this can deform over time. This is going to keep it non-stretch right there, and you're going to have stable shoulders. There is a bust tie on this bodice. I do have my pattern piece the wrong side up. It was just the easiest way to place it on my fabric, and I do reuse pieces, so that's what that is. Ignore that. I do have my bust tie marked here with a pen, and when I have fabric that's dark, black, navy, something like that, the best way for me to mark is with a tracing paper. So I don't have a white pen. I don't have those pens with chalk powder in them, nothing like that. So this is just the best way for me. So I'm going to put the paper on both of the layers right here. This is Burda carbon paper and a tracing wheel. So I can see my faint little bust dot mark. I'm going to prioritize that as one of the first steps. Well, following the instructions, it is one of the first steps, because this, if you manipulate it too much, it's not going to last that long. But I do have the mark on both sides. It's accurate and I can follow it. And this is how I like to mark dark fabrics, using tracing paper. If I'm marking lighter fabrics, then I'll just make a little dot here, dot there, and I'll just draw it with a friction pen, red or blue, something that I can see with a lighter fabric. But for dark, this is my preferred way. Here are some of the pattern pieces for the Markina dress from Each to Stitch. This is actually the bodice, the upper part of the dress. Front bodice has a center area that's interfaced. This would be folded back to form a button placket, nice and easy. Bust studs here, they differ in the depth according to your bust cup size. I'm doing a C. Back bodice is on the fold. These are the facings. Front, there's two of them. The back is just one. They are interfaced. I use tricot knit interfacing that has some give. I have a short sleeve. You can also do a long sleeve. My plan was to have a long sleeve, but I was missing about 4 inches of fabric to get my long sleeve, so I couldn't do that. It's okay, I can do the short one. And these are the waistband pieces. There are two of these. These are front ones, these are back ones. So there's going to be an inner and an outer layer. They are both the same. None of these are interfaced. This is a stretch dress, so you wouldn't want to compromise the stretch on these waistbands. Underneath the waistband, we have the skirt pieces. You can see they're slightly A-lined. The back skirt piece has little dots right there. I've marked them the same way you saw me mark the bodice dots, and these are both pieces that are cut on the fold. Very simple skirt pieces. Dots are not a common thing in knit garments, but this is a structured knit. The design is aligned for this feature. There are bust cup sizes, so I'm sewing it the same as I would a woven, starting from the tip, making sure
My needle is right on the edge of the fabric. I actually do that with my hand cranking, and then I keep going without back tacking. Any sewing you see me do in this garment is a narrow zigzag. It almost looks like a straight stitch, but it's going to have some give. There is my dart. Black is terrible to film with, but I'm sewing with brown just so that you can see my seams. I do have brown in here, so it totally makes sense. Over here, we didn't back tack, so we just do a few knots by hand, and that finishes off our dart. Easy to get over and done with pretty quickly. I think this is what makes the fit so much better, so I'm so happy when I see a dart. That's how the dart looks like on this side, super neat. I'm going to go ahead and serge everything I can, like the top of the shoulders, the center front for the placket area, the sides, for my bodice pieces, for my sleeves, for my skirt, my hem, everything I can, because it's so much easier to do it now than later. Because this is a heavier structured fabric, I'm going to be using my sewing machine for these seams and pressing them open, so it makes sense to serge them now, and then I can just continue putting this together. I'm just careful to not trim anything away with the blade while I'm doing this, so I don't lose out on the actual seam allowance. So it's just being careful there. I don't disengage the blade. After serging everything, I have aligned these shoulder seams right here for the bodice, right there. This is going to be a 3/8 seam allowance. I'm going to press these seams open, easy peasy. These are the other shoulder seams we need to sew, the facings. So we have the back and then we have the front right here. You're going to notice on the front facings, there is one side that's completely straight that was cut on the grain. Don't get confused, that is what's supposed to be here in the center, and in the sloped shape, that is the shoulder. Now when you align them, you're going to let them hang off like that. So there's a little tag on the back, and then this one's overlapping this way, because at the seam line, 3/8, we're going to be sewing right there on the edge. 2 more tiny little seams to sew and press open. After sorting out this facing, I am going to serge the edges so that they're ready to go for later. Okay, here we have our facing sewn, prepared, serged edges. I've got it against the neckline right sides together. I made a little mark at the center back, same as there, so I can match them up. Same as the shoulders over here. And let me show you what happens to the center fronts. So we have this area that's interfaced. It's a large chunk of it interfaced. There's a mark on the pattern there, has a line, and that's where you would fold back. I actually marked it with my tracing paper, and then I hand basted it just so I could see the blue thread from this side. And I have pressed that already in. So I've got that memory crease right there. There's a distance right here. So all I have to do is extend it and fold it back, wrong sides together here, right along that line, and put a few pins. And then this front facing is going to come down the neckline, and it's going to overlap this one by about 3/8 of an inch right there. So it's going to be on top of this other one. You can see there, overlapping. So when we sew this facing, we're going to do it in one go, and it's going to finish that center as well there. When we flip it, this facing is going to come from behind the placket. So I'm going to do the same on this other side. Just extend it. I have my memory crease already done, but I'm going to fold it back this way, right sides together. Hold it down, bring this facing over, make it overlap a little bit by 3/8, and that's how it's going to go. So this front facing is not going to reach the edge. You're going to find it smaller at first, but it doesn't have to because we have the button placket in that area as well. So let's go ahead and sew this 3/8 seam allowance. Before flipping this, I'm going to snip all along this curved neckline here on the front and the back. I'm not going to trim down the seam allowance. I think 3/8 is okay to have inside. And because this facing is going all the way to the inside, we want to snip to relieve the tension here of these curves. And now we just take this center, fold the seam allowance and flip. And now on the inside, this front facing is going to be behind the placket. So when we top stitch that, it's going to finish that edge. So nothing's going to be left raw. We do want to understitch. I'm going to start from there. I'll hold that seam allowance underneath the facing. So when you look at it, the seam allowance is here underneath the facing. I'm going to be grabbing my facing with my right hand, seam allowance tucked in there, and sewing on the edge all the way around this neckline so that the facing stays inside and you can't see it. I've been to the iron and pressed it. While I was there, I pinned it really flat on the ironing board and then hand basted it while flat. And now I'm going to top stitch. I'm going to do it from the wrong side so I can see what I'm doing. Here on the straight area, I'm going to go all the way up to here so I can catch that facing that's behind it. And then here, I'm going to start right there and go around the curves. I've done some basic steps after finishing that neckline, like the side seams and setting in my short sleeves. The sleeves, I had even assembled them beforehand. You can do this on the flat as well if you want, but I prefer to sew in my side seams first and then set in my sleeve on the round. So that's done. Now, if you're going to do functional buttonholes, this is when you would do them. There are marks on the pattern for them, but I would probably just try it on and see where they're going to fit because I always want one at my bust height. Because my fabric has a print and because I'm working with a basic sewing machine, I'm going to skip the buttonholes and I'm going to sew the buttons right through. I know it's a shortcut, I do it sometimes, but I'm confident the stretchy fabric will still allow me to put in my dress. I know that this circumference up here is still going to fit my head, so I'm not concerned about not being able to get into my dress. Now we have our waistband pieces. There are 2 layers, one for the outer, one for the inner. I cut mine out of the same fabric. You could have cut the inner layer out of a lighter knit. I don't have any of that, so I'm just going to use the same thing. The front and the back, right sides together. The front is a little wider than the back. And we have all these little seams to sew. Really easy peasy. 3/8 seam allowance, press them open. And then we're going to attach this waistband onto the bodice. Because there's 2 layers of these, we're basically going to sandwich the bodice between the 2 layers, and that's going to enclose this top seam of the waistband right there. Okay, here we have the bodice upside down and the waistband on top. So basically I just leave the bodice inside the waistband. So this is right sides together. This would be the layer that's your main layer if you're using different ones. For me, it doesn't make a difference. The front has marks here in the center that are going to match the overlap of the placket right there. And then it'll match 1 to 1. Match up the side seams of the waistband with the side seams of the bodice. Match up the back. So that is the first layer. I'm going to do it all in one go because it's just easier. So once I have the main layer on, I'm going to open this up. And then I'm going to get my other layer, making sure I've got the front right here. And on this inner layer, I'm going to have the right side of the fabric touching the wrong side of the bodice right here. So if I were to move the bodice out of the way, these waistband pieces would be right sides together with the bodice in between. So again, I'm putting this one inside now, but this one now is right side to wrong side. So when I pin it, you're going to be seeing the wrong side of the waistband in there as well. So I'm going to use the same pins I have to just realign everything and have all the layers ready. Once I have everything pinned, I'm just going to sew it on the round 3/8 seam allowance, and that's going to be the top part of the waistband. The seam's going to be enclosed on the inside. I feel like at this point I'm basically done. I had assembled the skirt very quickly. It's just side seams, and on the back we have some waist studs that I've sewn in the same way I did the bust studs. I have already done even my hem, all with a narrow zigzag. And now here are the waistband or done. You can see on the inside, you can see the right side of the fabric there, and the seam is enclosed. Both layers here, I have just done a quick hand baste. And now it's just about putting these right sides together, pinning it, sewing it on the round. And then I'm going to try it on, figure out where I want my buttons to go. Right here on the top part of the bodice. Sew them in, and that'll be my dress. Super nice, nothing hard.
I loved sewing the dress. There was nothing complicated here, nothing hard. lovely details for the feet that I always appreciate. You know, I'm always so excited to sew these garments that have these details because I just know it's not going to be a disappointment. Little checks for length proportions are always worth it for me, and I think it's amazing that you can do that without having to do a test garment, because I'm not in the time, I'm not in the right context to be doing test garments. I don't have extra ugly fabrics lying around, so I'm trying to do my best just with the final garment, and so far so good. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope to see you tomorrow at the Stitch Festival. For you who are going, I'm going to be wandering around there all day, so that is exciting. And don't forget to check out this amazing dress, 20% off through next Tuesday the 24th. See you back over here at Lifting Pins and Needles very soon. Bye.